2020 is over, and the car that sticks in my head as being the most contentious is the BMW M8 Competition Gran Coupe. It's stupid fast, but it's not stupid fun. So let's go over the 5 best things and the 5 worst things about the BMW M8. Now, BMW M cars of late have gotten a lot of thrown their way, and I'm not one with clean hands in that either. And the problem, I think, is the ethos of the car. In the late 90s, early 2000s, BMW M cars were the best driving cars on the road. Very important word that I just said, driving. Not horsepower, not performance, not fastest, not 0 to 60, not that. They were the best driving. They were the most fun. They were the ultimate driving machine. And today they're just not. So let's dive into the 5 worst things about the BMW M8. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the enemy of any sort of performance-oriented dynamics, and that's size. At 201 inches long, it's longer than the majority of the Dodge Chargers that are out there. Not the Challengers, the 4-door Chargers, the big family saloon cars. It's longer than that, which means that the wheelbase is long. And if the wheelbase isn't long, then it has a lot of overhang. Either way, it's not great for dynamics. You want a short wheelbase, you want a light car, that is the performance car recipe. Now, you can extrapolate it and you can get more out of it. The M5 is a great example. It's a fantastic sports car, but we're talking about the M8. 201 inches long is so long, so long. Now, there are some pluses to it. It's 77 inches wide, and it has a nice wide track, and you have a lot of rubber on there. So it grips really well, and it is pretty planted and stable in a corner, but you can't escape the fact that this is a big boy. Which leads me to number 2, and what goes with size, but weight. This thing is almost 4,500 pounds. It's super heavy. And what does that weight do but it elongates braking distances. Turn-in can be a little bit more numb depending on how much it has to, how much weight is over the front axle, and it makes things a little bit more difficult there. Plus, you have to have really stiff dampers to compose that big body over a corner. And then when you get on the power, yeah, you have an incredibly powerful engine here, 617 horsepower. It's one of the most powerful engines BMW's ever produced, but the fact of the matter is it's just big and it's heavy, and you're always aware of that behind the wheel. Now, number 3 is, it's a little bit subjective in the sense that I want to talk about the interior. The interior itself, standalone, is nice. However, it's the same interior as you get in a 5 Series, in a 7 Series, in a 3 Series. It's across their entire lineup. There's little tweaks, yes, and I won't go into all the semantics there, but it's just not special. And for the price that I'm paying for this M8, I want to feel special. That's why I like the Lexus LC so much. That interior makes you feel special. This is a flagship. This is their Halo car, which brings me to price. And yes, this thing starts at $140,000, and you get 4 doors, and you get over 600 horsepower, and it's incredibly fast and capable from a performance perspective. However, at 30 grand less, you can get a 911 Carrera S. It's going to be, more compromised from a practicality standpoint, less doors, less usable back seat, but it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more performance car. Or if you want to go the other way, you can spend 20 grand more and get the AMG GT63 4MATIC 4-door coupe. It's a terrible name for a car, but regardless, you can get that. And it takes pretty much everything the M8 adds like 13 horsepower, but it adds a theater worth of drama. The AMG power plants, the snarl, the experience that you get. The interior, while it's similar to some of the others in the segment, or some of the other cars in Mercedes lineup, it is more special objectively behind the wheel, and not behind the wheel, just looking at it, it looks more special too, especially with those monoblock wheels. Love those. And 5, and finally the last thing that I want to talk about is kind of something we've been talking about the whole time, and I'm kind of recycling some of the stuff that I've been saying, and so there's really kind of only 4 things that I really don't love about the M8, because it is objectively a good car. However, the fifth and final thing is that it just, again, doesn't feel special. The interior doesn't make me feel special. The exterior, while it is beautiful, isn't crazy. And granted, I had a black one. If I wanted to feel special, I would get the wild green color and I would get the coupe. But the way it sits now, it just, as tested, it didn't make me feel super special behind the wheel. But it's not all bad. Let's talk about some of the really, really good things about the BMW M8. One, it's fast as f. It's quicker to 60 than the Challenger Hellcat. You know, a car that was designed for drag and launch and quarter-mile times. Well, it's faster in the quarter mile, and it's faster to 60 than the Challenger Hellcat. Which brings me to number 2, and it is my favorite thing about this, and it's the powertrain. 617 horsepower from a 4.4 liter twin turbocharged V8 mated to an 8-speed ZF gearbox. Now, the power number, the engine, fine. The thing that I'm talking about here mostly is the gearbox tuning. The transmission can make or break your car, and BMW puts out the best automatic on the market, which is why they don't need to go to a dual clutch for their M cars anymore, because the tuning on this gearbox from ZF that they put in these M cars is phenomenal. Yes, it's quick on upshifts and downshifts in your manual mode, but the impressive thing is the tuning and the logic of the software when you're in automatic mode. It knows when you need to downshift. It knows when it needs to drop 2, even 3, maybe 4 gears. It's just a good powertrain, and I love it. And the third thing is comfort, and this is important because as the 8 Series, it is fantastic. It is an incredibly comfortable and plush GT car. It's big, it's powerful, it sounds good, it's a fantastic GT car. The problem that I think I run into, maybe it's just a mental thing, but when you put an M badge on a car, I want it to be more chuckable, I want it to be more dynamic, and just the physics just kind of keep it from being to that level that I expect with an M car. Again, it's just big, it's heavy, but it does a fantastic job at composing the body in a corner. When you're in Sport Plus, when you're in your M modes, it is really, really disciplined, and it's a fantastic car. However, it also does comfort really, really well. To be honest, I'll put the powertrain and the engine and the gearbox in Sport Plus, and I'll leave the dampers in comfort all day. Because that's, I think, where this thing really shines, as more of a GT car. Now, number 4 that I want to talk about is the exterior design. And I know BMW's gotten a lot of flack lately for their exterior designs and the big grills, and now we've got the 4 Series and the M3 and the M4 with the big coffin grills, and nobody really likes those. However, I think what they've done, especially on the coupe, the Gran Coupe still looks pretty good. I typically don't like the Gran Coupes as much as the coupes. If it were me, I would have the Coupe M8, but it still looks fantastic. It looks good as a flagship, it looks good in black, it's got enough kind of angularity and interesting style to it without being way overdone. It's what a flagship should look like. Which brings me to the 5th and final best thing about the M8. And that's sound. It goes back to the powertrain again. You have a 4.4 liter V8, and the sound that comes off of this thing, while you get a similar sound from something like an M5, it sounds fantastic. Just because you can get it other places doesn't mean it sounds bad. It sounds great, and again, this makes a fantastic car. You have a strong, super strong engine. You have a lightning gearbox. You have incredibly sophisticated damping and differentials, and the way that this thing distributes power is it's so smart, it's clinical. And then the sound that comes off is really good. Not just the tone quality, but also you get the kind of pops and the bangs and all that kind of fun stuff when you want it, and you can kind of tone that back when you don't. Which brings me to final thoughts, and I've kind of alluded to this a little bit throughout the course of the video, but I think the issue that I have with this M8 is the fact that the letter M is in front of it. And that doesn't mean that it's not an incredibly capable, incredibly fast performance car, because it is. I just think that the size and the dimensions and the physics of the car are more suited to being thought of as a GT car. Bruh. If it were my money and I were to have my pick of an 8 Series, it would be the M850i, and it would be the drop top. It would be the rag top. One, because the M850i is a little bit more raucous. It's a little bit rougher around the edges. You can get it squirrely. And 2, I want the drop top because I want to listen to that soundtrack falling out the back of this 8 Series because it is incredible. Actually, now that I think about it, you can get an M8 convertible, which is what I might do, but I haven't driven that one. I've only driven the M850 convertible, and that thing was badass. So I'd have to drive them back to back to see which one's a little bit more squirrely and a little bit more undone. But the M850 was a riot. That was a lot of fun. So in any way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. Let me know your favorite things, or if you'd like or dislike the M8, or if you think I'm totally wrong. And I'll see you next time.